Hey guys, real quick before this episode starts, yesterday being April 3rd, it was brought to the Back Sports Page family's attention that an individual with Back Sports Page, there was an incident on social media with that individual. We are very aware of the situation and it has been dealt with in an appropriate way for Back Sports Page and that individual. So that needed to be addressed before that this episode started. So I hope this doesn't change your opinion of us as content creators, as a website, and as individuals. That's all I wanted to say. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode of The Outside Line. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Line podcast. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day. My name is Jacob Barker. I am joined today by Mason Wood and Chris Shoemaker. I hope you guys are having a good day today. How are you guys doing?
I am doing good. Had a good weekend of racing. Lots to talk about today.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I had a really good weekend. All this racing, everything, all this chaos that we want to go into. Can't wait
Chaos
to talk about it.
chaos is definitely the word for the weekend, I would say. And we definitely had an action-packed weekend between F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR. It literally it lasted pretty much all hours of the day, Sunday, because we had F1 in Australia, which lasted about 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. I could barely stay up till about 2 a.m. because I was so exhausted. And then we had IndyCar at 12 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, and then the Cup Series at 3:30 p.m. So, like we said, we do have a ton to talk about. So let's just jump right into it and talk about the F1 Australian Grand Prix. They basically saw what NASCAR did at COTA and said, "Hey, let's do this weekend at Australia."
Yeah, I mean, I got mixed feelings about the red flags. During the race, there were three crashes, which caused three red flags, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings because F1 has never really been very liberal with red flags up until this race, and there's not that precedent there. And if they want to start throwing red flags in order to kind of, like NASCAR, maybe try to get a race finished under green flag racing conditions, to me that's okay, but they need to actually tell fans and tell the teams that, okay, this is what we're going to be doing, instead of just randomly doing it. Because at least with NASCAR, they actually are transparent about it. We want to finish under green, so we're going to throw a red flag. So that's one thing. And another thing is, I thought the red flag at the first one with the Albon crash, I thought that was a little bit overkill.
Yeah, with the Albon crash, and it was a pretty heavy hit from what I remember. I don't remember what turn it was. I think it was going into turn three, um, at least close to turn three, I believe. And the cause and the FIA finally came out with what they threw the red flag for. It was to sweep up the gravel, not to reset the barrier, not to get Albon's car out of the way, but to sweep up the gravel. That's one of the red flags that I think should not have happened.
Yeah, that just seemed like overkill. Although I will say this, I love it when there's a red flag during a race and it causes chaos. Because I love chaos. But at the same time, I didn't think a red flag was necessary. It's easy for me to say because I'm sitting here in a chair in Florida and I'm not in the cockpit of a race car or in race control, but to me, they could have just maybe slowed down the safety car and then have the marshals go in there with brooms, sweep up the gravel, and go from there, which I didn't quite understand why they needed it to sweep up gravel.
That's fair. I mean, that's the advantage you have, especially on some of these road courses. There was some of that talk last week with NASCAR at COTA of can they just, go have somebody run out there when there's no cars coming because there's such a large track. So I understand your point entirely, Chris.
Yeah, and safety car conditions, that's what they're for marshals to run out there and clean up the track. And it just seems, I don't know, it just seemed a little unnecessary. And I think the drivers, from what I gathered from the broadcast, they kind of seemed to think it was a little unnecessary.
Yeah, and you could tell. And I went back Sunday morning after I finally got up uh, and watched the recording. I had previously set my DVR to record the F1 race. I guess it was Saturday or whenever, and I could tell during the red flags that the drivers were getting frustrated,
Especially
and it
poor
was
old George Russell.
poor George. Um, it it was a little concerning to see the drivers getting frustrated like that because they shouldn't have to deal with something like that, not let alone a call from someone like the FIA. It's just it's something that it shouldn't be a concern of the drivers. That has to happen, but the problem is it did happen, and I mean obviously that's why we're talking about it because now we got if the FIA has proper authority or proper officials to throw these red flags to make these calls, what's the next step, right?
Yeah, and like I was saying, if they're going to start being liberal with the red flags, they need to just straight up tell everybody, hey, we're going to start throwing red flags when there's every time that there's a big hit, and then leave it at that. And just because that did seem to catch everybody by surprise. And two, I think they need to maybe call the red flag earlier so drivers don't get screwed as bad. Like poor old George.
Yeah, and that's why he got sent back to the pack after the restart.
Right. And so if they're going to call a red flag, I think they need to do it within one lap or do something like NASCAR and close the pit lane for a couple of laps
Mm-hmm.
just to maybe allow race control to make that determination.
Yeah, and I will say the only red flag that I believe was necessary was for Kevin Magnussen because they obviously wanted a green flag finish.
Mm,
And there's no overtime rules in F1 like there is with NASCAR. So they wanted to get a green flag finish for the fans. That's what the fans wanted to see. So that's why they threw the red, which, like I said, I that's the only one that I thought was necessary.
I thought the third
Didn't
one was necessary because
well,
that was a big crash.
yes,
It was.
it was a big crash, but I don't think that they were going to get that race restarted anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
whether it ended in safe under safety car anyway, but
Mm,
that's that's why that's why I think that the red flag was unnecessary because it wasted the driver's time even more.
yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
And that was a tough crash for Magnussen too, because I mean he just barely hit the wall and his back right wheel was gone.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
weird one too.
it was. It just gave the wall a little bit of a little kiss. I mean, a little more than a kiss, I guess,
Yeah.
and just said, "Hey, I'm out of here."
And it turned into a very cadaverous hit.
Yeah, like I said, they were watching what NASCAR was doing last week at COTA and said, "I want to try that."
Like I
Just,
was saying though, with the second red flag, okay, they want to maybe finish it under green flag. Okay, that's cool and all. I'm
mhm.
not a lot of people will. That'll be a little controversial, but that's cool. But they need to be more transparent about it and maybe hold a drivers' meeting and a press conference, say, hey, we're going to prioritize green flag running or green flag finishes rather than just kind of springing it on people.
Have they had any races this season that have had like wrecks towards the end of the race like that were like similar, or is this the first time we've really seen it this season?
I think it's the first time.
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
Because
believe this is the first red flag this season, too.
yes,
I mean, I guess they're setting the precedent now. They're setting it early in the season, and since we haven't had an issue like that early in the season, we haven't seen it. So, but I 110% understand your point, Chris, because like in any sort of sport, you want them to be transparent about the way they're going to run their rule book. And you see a lot more of, with social media and stuff these days, you see a lot more of those organizations be more transparent about what they're doing. So the fact that F1 wasn't transparent about what they're doing, maybe they'll say something about it in this week or something, considering now that we've had the situation. But it does. I do see the frustration that the fans would have 100%.
Adding on to that too, the FIA has been notoriously inconsistent with a lot of its rulings.
Sounds like another motorsport,
especially with small things like track limits, and F1 in general has been very notoriously inconsistent.
It just sounds so similar to multiple motorsports that we watch. Every single one has terrible calls.
Nah, never. Never.
I will say this: IndyCar isn't that bad for terrible calls.
Their track record is much better.
Race, but
there was one on Sunday, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen didn't dominate in the way we thought he would. Seemed like it was going to be Mercedes day. Fortunately, did not turn out that way for poor George. Had the power unit go up in literal flames about lap 20 or so, I'd say.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, and then Hamilton just couldn't get around Max, and it was a good battle.
That Red Bull just had too much pace.
Yeah, Max was just the better car. I feel like we saw it all day, and Lewis did what he could at the end, but Max had the better car all day.
And like I said, it was an exciting battle for a little bit, even at the beginning of the race.
I thought that going back to George, I thought that when his engine exploded, I thought that was a little weird because you don't see many big fires these days anymore, which that tells me that it could have been his internal combustion engine rather than his gearbox or any of the MGUK, MGUH, all those other hybrid components things.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking because, like you said, we don't see a fire like that with F1 motors nowadays. So the first thing that really stood out to me when I saw it was electric fire. So the first thing I thought was ECU or in some other parts of the motor.
Another thing that kind of made me think it could have been internal combustion engine was it had blue smoke, and blue smoke is typically oil.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my thinking.
Yeah, and that we actually see that a lot in NASCAR. We saw it at Bristol and Darlington, for example, with Kyle Busch. You could just tell that both motors were gone with his cars. I was actually at Bristol in September, and you could see just blue smoke just coming out of the tailpipes of the car, and it was just it was crazy because you don't see I mean, we see it often enough to understand what it is, but we just don't see that often to that extent.
Right.
Yeah, and these days cars are so reliable. It's not like 20 years ago when you're bound to at least get maybe 3 to 4 retirements because of engines. And I remember back in the old days too, when an engine let go, it let go.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
You would know from the moment it let go because it was just a white cloud of smoke driving around the racetrack.
oh, what was the
Mosquito
Like
foggers.
Jamie McMurray at Dover that one year could not see down the front straightaway.
Wasn't it Jamie McMurray too that was at Watkins Glen and the car just exploded on him?
Maybe that might have been an Xfinity race.
Maybe it
Yeah.
was.
If it was, I think it may have been Chad Boat or somebody like that.
But that was the weirdest thing one of the weirdest things I've seen in NASCAR when a car just explodes.
I mean, it literally exploded. So anyway, Max Verstappen, 37th career win. In his, what did I write down? His 80th career podium, tying Ayrton Senna. And he's only 25 years old.
Yeah. Which
So
shows that he's one of the all-time greats automatically.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy, he's already talking about retiring.
That's been going on for a while. I don't know if that's going to stick or not because he's been saying, "Oh, I might not be in F1 all that long," which that could just be talk.
I think it is, and because if you were going to be on the best team like Lewis Hamilton has for the past, 13 years or however long it's been since he's been with Mercedes. It's been 10 years actually. Now that I'm thinking about
10
it.
years.
Why leave?
Yeah.
Why leave Red Bull and you're dominating races, getting wins and championships? Why leave the sport you're dominating? And if he does quote unquote retire, and this is completely unscripted, and we're just going to talk about this because I want to talk about this now. If he does leave, would he come to America to do IndyCar, at least the road courses?
I
No,
don't think so.
No.
He just seems like he would just stay in Europe, maybe go into sports car, but he just doesn't seem like the type that would want to come to the U.S. and start racing in the U.S. He just doesn't seem like that adventurous type.
That's completely fair. And that'd be awesome to see. Do we think it's going to happen? No.
Then again, Jenson Button did come and try NASCAR, which I didn't see that one coming.
That's true. But if there is one F1 driver that I believe is going to be like Romain Grosjean and come to America to do IndyCar, I believe it's going to be Valtteri Bottas.
I could see it. I was thinking maybe Daniel Ricciardo come and do NASCAR. He loves NASCAR.
He does love NASCAR, but he already says that he does not want to race NASCAR, even if it's on an oval.
Ah, that's too bad.
I know
his personality.
I know, and I mean maybe they can get him in Project 91, just maybe. Now Justin Marks has said that the next Project 91 driver is officially signed, and the date for that has not been announced yet. The driver has not been announced yet, so we have that to look forward to in the next couple months or so, I'd say. But if it's Daniel Ricciardo, awesome. I am all for it.
I don't think there's a person alive that would be against Daniel Ricciardo going to NASCAR except maybe Christian Horner. Or Helmet.
Yeah, maybe.
But speaking of retirement, Do y'all think this is going to be Hamilton's last year?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think it will be. If it's not this year, I think it'll be next.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking because, and I don't want to age him that much, but he's lost his competitive edge. And do I want to see him win another race? Yes, because I believe he's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, we've seen in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do see him go out, it'll probably be next year.
Yeah, either way, I wouldn't be surprised because this is the first time he's ever been in a mid-pack car, and I feel like this is the first time we're really seeing how we can handle a car because we never really seen him in a mid-pack car before. He's always been with the best equipment, most resources, and the best team. But now we're seeing a little bit more of Hamilton, and I think because he's in a mid-pack team, he might get sick of it.
Maybe. You just don't know. That's why we watch racing. It's just there's that element of unknown with the driver and the teams.
But yeah, I think it'll be either this year or next year.
Anyway, now that we are done talking about that, I would like to discuss the next race weekend of Formula One. We are going to Azerbaijan. Like I said, as I like to call it, the Daytona of Formula One because of the long straightaway. Fun street course up by the castle. That race weekend will be April 28th to the 30th. So be sure to tune in on ESPN as that weekend rolls around. We will be talking more about that, like I said, as the weekend rolls around. So look forward to that. And the current F1 championship standings are, as I have my notes ready, Max Verstappen, 69 points. Perez,
Nice.
54 points. Nice, by the way. Alonso, 45 points. Hamilton, 38 points. Sainz, 20 points. Stroll, 20 points. Russell, 18 points. Norris, 8 points. Hulkenberg, 6 points. And Leclerc, 6 points.
Oh, poor Charles.
Poor Charles. He just cannot get a lucky break.
No.
I wonder if he's going to leave Ferrari at some point, either this year or next year, because he just gets so sick of them.
I would not be shocked if he does.
The only thing is, where would he go?
I don't know.
Because Mercedes probably will replace Hamilton with Schumacher. And
Yes.
if Schumacher never gets a drive again, that would be an absolute travesty because that boy has talent.
Yeah, Mick has a ton of talent. He just drove for the worst team in Formula One.
And he got in a couple of big crashes that probably shouldn't have happened, but at the same time, that could happen to anybody. So I don't 100% blame the big crashes on him, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know.
It's just a wrong place, wrong time sort of deal that he dealt with a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, Azerbaijan, that race, I believe it's still 100% safety car chance.
Oh, definitely.
Because I think every race has had a safety car there.
I would say so. That's the type of course to get 100% chance of a safety car mostly because of the castle section.
I can't believe that hasn't been blocked and there hasn't been a red flag
Yet.
You might have just spoke that one into existence with the way that this weekend went. There's going to be 5 red flags now.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
And
it's your fault.
One of them's going to be poor Charles.
Unfortunately.
Yes. He'll stuff it into the castle section again.
There are 3 things that we'll count on every single race. Max Verstappen will probably win, or I should say a Red Bull will probably win.
That's
A
better.
Red Bull will get on the podium, and then Ferrari's going to just be Ferrari and mess up something.
It'll be a
Okay.
normal weekend, hopefully.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
just
chaos, though, so I'll say that much.
well, if you want to talk about chaos, we've got the perfect race to talk about. IndyCar at Texas.
That was a great
That
race.
that was an awesome race, which
It's
is
nice to see a series run well at Texas. It really is.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, NASCAR wouldn't know anything about that. Well, it's funny that I say that because they've had some pretty good races at Texas, but not in recent memory.
Yeah, I mean, too, there's always a little part of me that's a little salty that took North Wilkesboro's place.
Yeah, I I don't blame you there. But hey, maybe one day they will, and it'll never happen because of SMI. But maybe one day they'll turn it into a Six Flags resort and give North Wilkesboro its date back on the schedule.
That'd be bad for IndyCar, though.
Well, okay, let's talk about this. Another unscripted moment. If they do end up tearing down Texas, which as we just said, is a great track for IndyCar.
And that'd probably never happen in a million years.
No, because like I said, thanks SMI.
Yeah.
Um, where would where would they go?
Now,
Because
are
they've
we
had
talking? Go ahead.
because they IndyCar's had some great races at Milwaukee. Um, Atlanta will never happen because of the current track configuration.
Yeah, that's kind of like a mini super speedway now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
What
about
about
Charlotte?
Charlotte?
I was gonna say, what about
Hey,
Charlotte? Charlotte would act, and it they could run Charlotte, absolutely.
I'm surprised that they haven't tried Charlotte before. Have they?
they have back in the old kart days.
Hmm. I'm surprised they haven't gone back there.
Well, maybe it has a little bit to do with it, I forget what year it was. It was the late '90s, but there was a crash. I think it was either on the front straightaway or coming out of turn four um, at Charlotte with the IndyCar race, and a couple of fans were killed in the stands with flying debris going into the stands. So maybe that's why they haven't returned to Charlotte. But if they do return to Charlotte one day, I think it'd put on a great race.
Yeah, and it's a very similar track to Texas too. So, I mean, how much different would the race be in a good way?
And yeah, I would go. I live 2 hours from Charlotte. I would go.
Now, what
Or
about
even the Roval?
that's what I initially thought of was the Roval, but if we really wanted to add another like oval, right? What about Homestead or New Hampshire? I feel like those could be two options as well.
I think
Yeah,
That would
New
go back
actually
Hampshire
be
might
very
be a little
solid.
small, but I don't know for sure.
go back to Homestead. Yeah, they've run both Homestead and New Hampshire before.
I think going back to Homestead would be a great move.
Now, I think the reason why they don't go to Homestead, I might be wrong about this, but it seemed like there was a fatality there in the kart days. Didn't Greg Moore die at Homestead?
Greg Moore passed away at Fontana.
Okay. Okay.
I know what crash you're talking about. I just don't know who it is. There's a practice crash for Michael Andretti Racing, I think, and that's
Okay.
when Danica was on the team. It was like in 2006, I think.
Another one
I thought
too.
I thought that was Greg Moore.
I could. I don't
No,
remember.
no, Greg Moore passed away mid to late '90s, I think.
That was another bad one because he had a lot of talent and no telling where he is going to go.
Yeah, he passed away very young, um, and I've seen the video just scrolling through YouTube videos, and it was horrific.
Another reason, though, going back to Charlotte is that that they're a little maybe hesitant to go back to Charlotte is because do y'all know about? I think his name was Russell Phillips. That
Yes,
crash.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, I won't go into it too deep into it, but that was a very bad crash where he died very
yeah.
badly.
Hmm.
So that's probably another reason why that they are hesitant. And although that has been over 20 years ago, but still,
Well, how about another track that I have a little bit of a bias to because it is close to me? They stopped going here right when I kind of got involved with watching IndyCar. But what about Phoenix? I mean, they've invested a lot of money in Phoenix. Could they go back to Phoenix? It could be a
I can see
possibility.
that.
I could see that. It'd be interesting to see how they do with the new restart zone.
What
Yeah, I mean,
about?
have they raced on the new? Was it configured in 20? I don't know. Have they raced on the new configuration?
I don't
Not.
think so.
I don't think IndyCar has.
That would be very interesting. Like I think Phoenix would be very interesting on the IndyCar schedule if they added it back. And I'll be the first to say I'll be at the race if it comes here. So let me just say I support the idea and I will be there to continue that support if they do it. Let me just put that one out there.
If
Well,
anyone from IndyCar is listening or watching, you have our support to go back to Phoenix.
I will be there.
you know, you think they could ever go to North Wilkesboro?
No.
I Yeah, I
Not
think
with
it's a
the way
little small.
it's small and I mean they could, but it is extremely small. That would be the biggest issue is you're really diving into the short track racing element, you know?
Yeah, the shortest track that they go to is Iowa, and that's it's the sister track to Richmond, so it's only zero point 0.8 miles. So I don't think that there's any way, as much as I would want to see it, I don't think there's any way that IndyCar would ever go to North Wilkesboro.
Richmond they could go to because they have raced at Richmond before, I believe.
Yeah, if
Hmm.
they end up going back to Richmond one day, and I think it was on the schedule. It was supposed to be on the schedule this year, but something happened with the deal, and it just fell through. So that's why they put only like 3 or 4 ovals on the schedule for this year. But if they do go end up going back to Richmond one day, I'd go.
What about Dover?
Whew, that'd be fun.
Dover,
They have been to Dover before in the kart days.
I didn't know that, but I was thinking I'm surprised that they never tried Dover.
That would be if they do try it, that'd be interesting.
I think the scary part about Dover is Dover has some nasty NASCAR wrecks. I can't
Yeah,
imagine some of the
Yeah, that's
IndyCar wrecks
true.
with some of the way that track is like it's a 1 mile track, but it is a fast 1 mile track with the way it's banked and everything.
it's a self cleaning track too.
Right.
The Yeah, and I think IndyCar might have. I think they have three configurations of their car. One is road course, and the other one is oval, and they might have a short oval one, but I'm not sure, which is basically oval but with more downforce. And they don't go 220.
Yeah, for once. So
Although the worst track they could go to oval wise would probably be Michigan because Michigan has the record for being the fastest ever.
well, they have gone to Michigan before, and they used to go to Fontana as well.
Correct.
So I don't know. I don't know
Well,
about that one.
the reason
But
why I say that is because the speed record for an Indy car is 252 miles an hour, and that was on Michigan. And I believe
yeah.
they took Michigan out because it was too fast.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, since they have raced at Fontana before, which will never happen again, by the way. um, I could see them going to Michigan, but if they don't go back to Michigan for the speed concerns or the safety reasons, that's completely understandable.
Yeah, honestly don't see them going back to Michigan for that reason. It's just too fast.
Yeah. Okay. We've rambled on long enough about that. Let's get into what we are supposed to talk about. Texas, great race. I never thought I'd say that in my life, even if it was an IndyCar race. Joseph Newgarden, third win at Texas, his second in a row at Texas. Easily his best track, I'd say. Um, it was just a great race.
It really was,
Mm-hmm.
especially say the last half of it, the second half of it. That really was a good race. Lots of passing, then lots of lead changes too. And then everybody was on the edge of their seats because of fuel, which going
Mm-hmm.
back to NASCAR, fuel mileage races aren't necessarily a bad thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Now,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, my question to you guys was going to be, do you think that the racing was helped by the fact that the trucks ran on the track the night before? They mentioned it a few times on the broadcast, but did that help the racing at Texas out a little bit?
That's hard to say.
Yeah. I don't know because you're comparing, well, not really comparing the two vehicles, but
Different
you're
rubber.
comparing, yes, because with the trucks, you got Goodyear tires, and with IndyCar, you have a Firestone.
And then
So,
it's just a different compound too.
mhm. So it's just that one's hard to say. Um,
I
but
will say
go.
this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, going to what you said about the lead changes in the on-track passes. I have a stat here: 27 lead changes and 1,070 on-track passes throughout the race.
Yeah, you don't see that in F1.
No, you do not. So I just wanted to bring that little stat out here, which is remarkable for not only motorsports, but it's huge for Texas, which is not has not been known for passing in any series in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and IndyCar, I always have to cringe a little bit because ovals have really nasty wrecks in IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
Because we lost Dan Weldon in an oval, very similar to Texas at Las Vegas.
Yeah, that was a
And that was
horrific.
the worst crash I've ever seen.
Yeah, I remember watching that race. It was not good to say the least.
Mm-mm. But
Yeah,
at the
I
same time, Texas has been a great track for IndyCar.
mhm.
And the only bad part about the race was poor old Roman Grosjean's crash at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of an anticlimactic ending because who knows what we would have gotten.
I I think they would have wrecked, honestly.
You reckon?
I feel like they may have wrecked, but I just don't know. I would have loved to seen a clean finish, but I have this really weird feeling that Pato and Newgarden would have wrecked each other,
I
and
don't-
Polo would have gone through to win.
I didn't think so. I thought they were going because they were racing each other very clean and giving them
Hmm.
probably a little bit too much room, which is something you don't see in any series.
Mm-mm.
No, and that's okay, and that's why we got the finish like we did on Sunday, and it was very exciting. And unfortunately, like you said, we did have Grosjean wreck that brought out the caution to end the race. Poor Grosjean can't catch a break.
I'm really hoping he wins. He's probably the IndyCar driver that I'm cheering most for because I really want him to win.
Yeah, I've he should have won at St. Petersburg, but that is racing. It's just one of those deals.
Yeah. And he got,
uh,
it's just one, yeah, he just kind of got messed up by McLaughlin.
yeah, it was just a crazy incident at St. Petersburg. Same today or same yesterday at Texas.
Two drivers just going for it.
Yeah.
One thing that I absolutely love about IndyCar, though, is as a general thing, as a general rule, man, those things are tough. You can have one slap the wall and say at a street track, and you'll be able to finish the race. But with an
Mhm.
F1 car, if you look at it funny, it'll break.
So
It's like
now that we're done talking about that, we obviously saw a great race yesterday. Was this the best racing you guys have seen at Texas Motor Speedway? Because I personally believe that that was the best racing I've ever seen at Texas.
In a very long time, it is. Yes, absolutely.
it is. I don't know because it's hard to say because last year's race at Texas was fantastic. It was a drag race to the finish, and for a split second, I didn't know who won,
Right.
which was that's the racing that you want to see.
And that's you don't see that too often in IndyCar anymore. And I will give that points to last year's race, but it just didn't play out the way that this race at Texas this year did because there was just so much side by side racing, and it kind of looked like a pack race, if I'm being perfectly honest.
The
Pack
And
races
best.
in IndyCar are actually kind of scary
yeah,
because
that's
going back to
why
Dan Weldon,
yeah, that's why Dan Weldon was killed, and um, I I want to say this with all lightheartedness as I can. Like I said, that's why he was killed, and I really hope that we never see a pack race in IndyCar ever again.
yeah, I mean, it makes for great racing, but it's also incredibly dangerous.
100%.
And then
And,
we almost saw a bad wreck with Graham Rahal,
mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah,
was a
Ray Hall.
hard hit too.
All the wrecks on uh, at Texas were pretty hard hits, I'd say.
Yeah, but Graham
Yeah, Ray Hall.
Rahal, that was lucky that he didn't get launched into the catch fence.
That's yeah. I was very surprised that he stayed on the ground, and thankfully, all four tires stayed on the ground after basically just rolling off the back wheels. So I guess was it Kyle Kirkwood?
I think so.
Yeah, it was a mid to lower pack driver, and I think it was Kyle Kirkwood. That
Yeah,
sounds about right.
I think it was Kyle Kirkwood. But if he didn't didn't stay on the ground and got into the catch fence, we could have seen a very similar incident to Chicagoland what year was it? 2003, 2005 with Briscoe.
Or Kenny Brack at Texas in IRL in
Oh my
2003.
goodness,
The
that was bad.
the highest G forces ever sustained and survived at 263.
Unreal. Just
And
shows you how
for
much.
reference, is anything over say 50 or 60, there's a good chance you're going to be hurt.
Yeah, it's just terrifying, and that just shows you how far safety features with any motorsport has come along in the past 20 years.
And the
100%.
aero screen too.
Yes, the aero screen has saved already saved numerous lives.
It's
Right.
saved a life
From
already this season, I believe.
Right. We've already seen that come into play tremendously, and that's been a great safety innovation that they've used.
yeah,
I'll
I
admit I
remember.
hated the Halo when it first came in. I thought it was going to create more problems than it solved.
Hmm. And well, that's the thing is that, like I said, it has saved so many drivers' lives already, going from Will Power at Iowa, yeah, Iowa, a couple of
Roman
years ago
Grosjean at
to
Bahrain.
Grosjean. It's just this is why we need these safety features, which is also something I want to talk about when we get to NASCAR. But we will, like I said, we will get to that in a little bit. Um, it's amazing to see how the safety features have come along in the past 20 years, and I I hope I never have to see another fatal crash on the racetrack ever again in my life, because that's probably the
That's
most horrific
traumatizing.
feeling. It yes, yes, and I remember when Dan Weldon passed away. I was a week from turning 11, so I was 10 years old at the time. So it was very traumatizing for a 10-year-old kid to see that on live TV.
Yeah. And I remember when Justin Wilson, the most recent IndyCar driver,
Hmm.
to die in a fatal crash. I remember seeing that one too. At the time, I didn't think it was that going to be that bad because I don't know, it just didn't seem that bad. But when you really look at it and really think about it, he shouldn't have got hit on the head with a nose cone.
No, and that's why we have the new Aero screen in effect now, and it should have been for years.
Mm,
I agree.
and
So
I'm thankful for that. And
yes,
like I was saying, I hated it at first. I will say this too: the IndyCar's aero screen looks a lot cooler than the Halo in F1.
yes, because it makes it look more like a cockpit than anything else now
In
compared to
F1,
the
it just looks like a flip flop.
yeah, I can see that now that I'm really thinking about it. So for Newgarden, this was his 26th career win. Uh, and the next race coming up for IndyCar is Long Beach.
I love Long Beach.
It's
Long
going to be a
Beach is
great
so
race.
cool.
It's the Monaco of the USA.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say so. Um, it just has such a good prestigious history, and it's always a great time. And we talked about it last week. If the
With
Cup cars would ever
NASCAR.
go there, that's not happening.
I will say
Uh,
this, there's part of me that wants F1 to go to Long Beach, but at the same time, it's a blessing because F1, they,
we,
to get
we
a
don't
grade
we don't
one
need five
track,
dates. We don't
it
need
really
five
messed it
U.S.
up.
dates. Yeah,
No.
That, and I would rather see that than Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is just going to create problems.
We shall see. It's going to be very interesting, the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Man,
November.
Miami was goofy
I didn't
last
like
year.
it. I didn't like it.
With the fake harbor,
God,
that
that
was real goofy.
it's just like how difficult is it to put real water in? It just please,
Or just not do it.
or just not do it. There you go.
100%.
Anyway, um, IndyCar Championship standings as of yesterday. Pato Award leads with 82 points. Marcus Ericsson second, 75 points. Dixon 67 points. Newgarden 66 points. Pillow 60 points. David Malukas 53 points, which is pretty cool, I'd say.
That's a little bit of a shocker.
Callum Ilott 52 points.
That one's
Scott
a shocker,
McLaughlin
too.
48 points. Rossi 40 points, and Will Power 40 points. So got some pretty young guys in the points so far, but it is still very early in the season. We will see how they do in the next coming months as the month of May is coming up for Indy. It's going to be a great time the entire month of May. Obviously, we have the road course at Indy and obviously the Indy 500. So if a championship favorite is going to come out on top of the IndyCar season, it is going to be in the month of May because of the double points race. Or did they do away with the double points race?
It's still a thing.
Is it okay? Because I could have sworn I read something that they were doing away with it, but it may have just been for the last race of the season.
I thought that was mildly goofy, but I can understand it. I don't
Yeah,
mind it.
if
It's
they're
not
going,
stages.
yeah, if they're going to have a double points race, it may as well be Indy.
Yeah. And I don't mind it being the last race of the season, too. Like I said, it's a little goofy, but I can understand it. Because we had 7 drivers when Pillow won the championship that could have won the championship that year.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was insane.
That was pretty crazy.
Like, how many series do you have where 7 drivers can legitimately win a championship?
It's
At
very
one
rare.
time?
Not many.
That's why I love IndyCar.
The most I ever remember from NASCAR is 4. And that's not including the championship 4. That's including the old formats from when the original Chase for the Cup debuted.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and I still remember the original point system, too. With the original point system, Carl Edwards would be a 2-time champion, I believe.
yeah, and Jeff Gordon should be a 7-time champion, but I'm not biased or anything, right? Right?
Nah.
Hey, Tony would have won 3 either way. I don't really care.
I think that holds up. Anyway, let's talk some NASCAR real quick. Had the trucks at Texas, like we discussed earlier. Carson Osavar finally got his first career win, so good for him, even if it was a somewhat controversial finish. I actually didn't get to see a replay of the wreck, but all I know is that Carson finally got the monkey off his back and got his first win. So good for him. He's in the playoffs. If there's not 10 more drivers who don't win a race, of course, which is entirely possible.
It's a possibility, but a huge win for Carson Hocevar. It's been one that's been, we feel like we've been waiting on it, and now for it to finally come. Great win for him. Unfortunately, it had to, have that slight little bit of controversy in it, but he's officially a winner. And I just wanted to share because I found this out on Twitter the other day. Most people in NASCAR, if you follow like some certain NASCAR media, you probably know Eric Estep. he started off doing like a stop motion series when he was really young. That's how I found him. And turns out Carson Hocevar used to be a part of that. He was a race winner in the Double E Cup Series, so names are made in the Double E Cup Series, as Eric Estep said. I thought that was an interesting tidbit because I was a part of that season too, and little did I know that somebody else in that series would be a Truck Series winner one day. So congratulations to Carson Hocevar, a well-deserved win. He's been waiting a long time for it.
That's pretty
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
I did not know that until someone pointed it out.
No. I really didn't think about it. I always watched E-Step and Aflac Cup Series when I was 10, 11 or so. So it's pretty cool for it's like you said, it's like how the Xfinity Series slogan is names are made here, but no.
Exactly.
Eric Estep, there you go. Chandler Smith got his first Xfinity win at Richmond, which is obviously not a long time coming, but could have won at least one race by now. So good for him and good for colleague to get their program back up where it should be after winning this week and last week at COTA with AJ Allmendinger. They're in a good place right now, I'd say. And they're finally getting their speed and their cars back to where they used to be. And I'm not going to say championship form, but I'm going to say top form.
I do love AJ Allmendinger. I'll say that. AJ Allmendinger is one of my favorite drivers. He just has such a good personality.
Yep.
He's kind of like Carl Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
I miss Carl.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier before the show started. We all miss Carl and should have been a champion, but thanks, Tony.
There's a person alive besides Brad Keselowski that doesn't miss Carl.
Oh, man.
This is a fair point.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. So we've had a first-time winner in the Truck Series, first-time winner in the Xfinity Series. That means we were going to get a first-time winner in the Cup Series, right? Nah.
Never works out that way. Yes, Kyle Larson with the victory. Chris's pick.
Yeah.
We need to do a point series for all three of us.
We should.
Keep track of it.
Actually, I will say what you just said, Mason, about all three series getting first-time winners on the same weekend is false, Mason, because
calling you out.
Yeah, and I'll know this because I'm the Larson fan, obviously. When Larson got his first win, it was at Michigan. So Brett Moffitt won his first Truck Series race, and then Michael McDowell won his first Xfinity race at Road America. So we had three first-time winners.
Look at this guy.
Same weekend.
And I remember that first win of Kyle Larson too, because I remember the announcer we had. I can't remember his name, but the guy from IndyCar was doing the announcing, and I remember the blinding restart. Yeah, Lee Diffie was doing the announcing, and I love him doing NASCAR races because he does a great job of covering all motorsports. And I remember that race specifically for his call at the end of the pass, the blinding restart by Kyle Larson.
Do you want me to call you out again? Because I can right now.
No, we don't need to. We don't need to. I think.
Okay, I'll leave you. I'll leave you alone for now.
Let's talk about what I really am excited about, which was the freaking the aero package, man. I mean, my goodness, we actually had the best race at Richmond in years.
At least since the fall of 2016.
100%.
At least.
So, and it makes me excited. Richmond's a playoff track. So if we can have similar racing, I mean, guys were slipping and sliding. There was some multi-groove racing at Richmond, which is weird to say. I feel like just an absolute blast of a race that I'm excited to see it in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, Richmond is going to be interesting when it comes to the second race because I forgot when it is. I'm not sure if it's in the playoffs or not. If it isn't, it's right before them, like early August or so. So it's going to be.
It's in the playoffs now. It's in the first round.
Is it?
It's part of that very first round of the playoffs. Let me double check. I am almost 1,000% sure it is a part of the playoffs.
That's such a weird thing to think
If
of,
you
NASCAR
if you're
playoffs.
wrong, you could PayPal me $5.
If I'm
gonna do
wrong,
that.
I'm blaming it on Mike Joy again, simply because he's the one that said it on the broadcast last night.
Big
Just
reveal
throwing the
live.
blame to other people. I see
Oh
you.
man,
I
That's
see
my
you.
job. No,
Yeah,
Richmond is actually a lot sooner than I anticipated. It's in July. It's July 30th. Wow. I'm wrong once again. Look at me. Just on it today.
live on air. Mason Wood is wrong.
We need like a slug or something, or a lower third that says Mason is wrong, or like a graphic that shows how many times he's been wrong in the show.
I'll keep track. Don't worry. And this will all go in. So don't worry. Back to what we were talking about. It's going to be very interesting to see how Richmond is in July, because if y'all don't know, it gets hot in July at Richmond. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the car handles in the heat and with how hot the track's going to be. And it's going to be a great race. As much as I want it to be a night race, let me rephrase that. I want it to be a night race because of how hot it's going to be there.
Bring it back.
If July, or if Atlanta in July is a night race, then Richmond in July needs to be a night race.
I agree.
Because it's ridiculous of how hot it's going to be.
And then the cockpit of those cars, it gets like what, 110 degrees?
Oh, they've had races even more. I mean, I think they were reading off sometimes in the summer last year at 140, 150 degrees in those race cars. I mean, it's brutal. And I live in Phoenix, right, where it gets to about 120. I can tell you it's not fun. So I can't imagine what those drivers go through in those race cars. Because a lot of guys like to do sim racing. You play your video games. The one thing we never experience is the heat in those race cars.
Heat.
We're in the comfort of our air conditioning. So the heat in those race cars is a big factor, and that's where you see a lot of that grit in the summertime, especially on the NASCAR side with all the heat that they deal with and stuff like that. So, and to your point, we saw a lot of slipping and sliding already yesterday. I mean, if in July, it's going to be hectic. It's going to be a really hectic race. So if we thought this race was good, I imagine the July race is going to be even better. Just depends on how much the fine line of like good racing and then craziness,
I do love chaos.
Chaos is fun.
A buddy of mine calls me the emperor of chaos.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the package does in July, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Does NASCAR have a requirement, like a heat requirement? Like if it gets too hot and during a race they have to delay it? Is that a thing?
Not to our not. I don't believe so. I don't think we've had that issue before.
I don't think so, but I do know that last year in Nashville, it was so hot they started the race 2 hours later than they projected, and then it rained.
Yeah.
So
that's why Nashville is a night race this year.
That's probably a blessing that it rained.
Oh yeah,
and cut the race short.
It ran the full distance, I think.
Oh.
Yeah,
that shows you how much I know.
Yeah, so that's why Nashville is a night race this year, because of how hot it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go to Nashville one day, but it's just going to be too hot right now. And if they want to make it a playoff race, put it in September, fine. I'm okay with that. I can handle that. But right now, it's just too hot to go to Nashville.
Well, and speaking of night races, we have our first one of the season coming up on Easter Sunday, Bristol Night Dirt Race. It's going to be
Yes, we
a
do.
an interesting race to say the least on the good old fashioned dirt at Bristol, which I don't believe they should have ever put on the track, but we're still going to
Nope.
enjoy it anyways. We're racing on Easter. I'm all right with it. 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. How are we feeling about Bristol dirt?
I'm not a big fan of it, but it is what it is.
So, if you don't, I've actually never discussed this with you guys before. I try to keep up with the World of Outlaws as much as I can. So I'm a pretty big dirt guy, but we don't need stock cars on dirts. I will say this, much less a modified concrete track that has dirt put on it that just does, like I said, just doesn't need dirt on it. If we do
100%.
go, if we do go to a proper dirt track, let it be Knoxville, like the trucks run, or
Mm-hmm.
let it make amends with Tony Stewart and go to Eldora, which
It
may
should be
not
a
happen.
genuine dirt facility, it feels
Yep,
like. And
yep,
that's I think the biggest knock that everybody has had is you're throwing dirt on a track that doesn't need it. And then, just there's so many dirt racing facilities that they could go to. So that's the biggest, I think, complaint that we see. It's a cool concept. It's cool, but yeah, it does beg the question, why not go to Knoxville or one of those tracks, because they spend a lot of money to do the dirt race. They're spending a lot of money to do certain races when they could have races at other places. Let's just put it that way.
It's kind of like F1 and those races at some obscure country that's going, that's track is eh when they're leaving out tracks
Mm-hmm.
like Hockenheim and
yeah,
Nürburgring.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good point because I was gonna try to go this year, but um, wanted to. I've got other things I need to do around the neighborhood, unfortunately. So I'm going to try to go next year. I want to at least experience it if they do have it next year. I don't want to say I'm for it. I'll be fine with it, but it's not something that gets me super duper excited. But
Yeah. If I'm going to Bristol, it's for the night race, not the dirt race.
yep, yep. And it was a better race last year, thankfully, than in 2021. Probably because the track was better prepared and it was under the lights.
Mm-hmm. They've done each year. They've gotten better at preparing the track, and they started doing it under the lights, which I think was helpful. So I think we'll see a good race. It's going to be a fine race. I mean, there's going to obviously be some moments, some controversial moments. Who knows what's going to happen at the finish, especially compared to last year's finish. But it'll be it'll be an interesting race, and there'll be a lot of eyes on it for sure.
Yeah, it'll be crazy because I think we'll see some because guys know how to handle the dirt at Bristol now. So I think we'll see some wrecks like we did last year. Maybe not to the level that Noah Gregson almost flipped over Kevin Harvick last year, but
Mm.
maybe we'll see a couple wrecks like we did last year, and maybe we'll see a hectic finish like we did last season, which would be pretty awesome. But maybe if we had a somewhat calm finish for Bristol, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I think we could see a somewhat calm finish. So my personal prediction this weekend, Christopher Bell is going to win this weekend, hands down. That's my pick.
Yeah, I
C
was
Bell,
thinking
huh?
the same thing.
C. Bell is the guy. He's been one of the top Toyota runners. He's a great dirt racer. I think he's feeling a little bit angry about how some things went down this weekend with Ross Chastain, even if he admits that there was more space there than what he thought. But I think that he's going to come back with a vengeance. He's been kind of carrying Toyota, and he will do so again next week for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say Christopher Bell too. either Christopher Bell or the very basic choice of Kyle Larson, just because of his background in dirt.
Yeah, I, I thought about it. I thought about Larson a little bit, um, but granted, he did win yesterday. But I just don't trust his luck enough to pick him for Bristol. So I'm going to choose a guy with some more dirt background and who owns his own uh, uh, sprint car team. I'm going to go with Alex Bowman.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I
So,
think that's a good pick.
so he's been the most consistent driver all year round. And
Mm-hmm.
he's due for a win. It's been over a year since his last win. Maybe finally get that monkey off his back, break through to victory lane, get his first win at Bristol.
I think that could definitely happen. I think that's Bowman could be the man. I could see it. I'll say too, my dark horse for the weekend as well, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I think Stenhouse is going to have a good run. He was up there towards the front and then had some issues and had to go into the garage pretty early on. I don't remember exactly what the issues were, but Stenhouse is a really good dirt racer as well. Expect him to be up at the front as well.
Okay. Yeah, Stenhouse be a good pick. Who did I just think about?
Cody Ware.
Yes, obviously. Um,
Bowman.
yeah, I had Bowman. I had another driver I just thought about. Oh yeah, Suarez.
Suarez could definitely come out of nowhere, I feel like, and
I
steal a win.
like Daniel Suarez.
All right. I want to throw this little stat out before we wrap this up and then go over our current playoff standings. Yesterday, we had 3,816 green flag passes, which is the most on track passes since loop data was implemented in 2005. I'd say that's all thanks to the new Aero package.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's where I was really happy with this Aero package. I mean, I feel like we didn't get to see too much of it at Phoenix just because of the way the track is configured and the way that track is. But we really got to see it here at Richmond. And keep in mind, we have some tracks that are all going to, we have some tracks that are going to be using them over the next couple. I mean, Martinsville is going to be using it here in a couple of weeks. So
yep.
It's a big deal, and I'm glad it was good racing, and it makes me excited for Martinsville that much more. There was a lot of disappointment after the way Martinsville went last year, but I'm that much more excited for it again this year.
Yes. One other little tidbit I want to just throw out there real quick. I want to start doing a little thing that we can do for, I want to call driver of the day, like a Formula One does, but it can be attributed to all three series. Josh Berry.
Josh Berry. He was the man, second place finish. What a day for Josh Berry, because he didn't run up front for a really good portion of that race. It was a sneaky getting up there. I mean, he did a great job.
He got spun off the nose of Ryan Blaney early in stage 2. So had a up and down run, I'd say. And I think he has a spot waiting for him in the Cup Series. Whether that's at Hendrick, I don't know. Maybe it could be with Petty, GMS. I'm sorry, Legacy Motor Club. Or maybe in the future when Junior Motorsports comes up into the Cup Series. But that's a discussion for the next for a future episode.
My pick is Pato Award. The dude almost lapped the field.
Yeah.
In Texas at the first half. I had never seen anything like it.
Oh yeah.
That's why fuel mileage races are great. Okay, I want to go over our current NASCAR Cup Series playoff standings before we wrap up, as well as some notable drivers that are missing the playoffs as of right now. William Byron is first, then Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Kevin Harvick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher. Both RFK cars are currently in the playoffs. Whether that holds up or not, I don't know. I have a feeling that it might, but if it does hold up, they will have to both win to get in.
No, I agree with that. They're going to have to win to get in if they want to make it in. But there's a lot of guys that are outside of the playoffs that could easily win a race this year. So it's win or bust. I feel like for RFK, it doesn't really matter where they're at in the standings right now.
Yeah. So our notable drivers out of the playoffs right now: Daniel Suarez is 6 points below the cut line. Michael McDowell, he's only 8 points back behind the cut line. He had a great day yesterday. And he had a great day at COTA, too.
He's had a couple good weeks for sure.
Corey LaJoie, 9 below the cut line. Ty Gibbs, 17 below the cut line. Chase Briscoe is 40. 42 below the cut line. Bubba, 46 below the cut line. And Noah Gragson, 77 below the cut line. So I would say those drivers that I mentioned below Ty Gibbs are must win, because I just don't see them pointing their way in, even with how competitive a field it is now. They have to win one of these races.
Oh, 100%. They're going to have to. All of those guys are probably going to have to win, especially some of the guys that have gotten deeper down. But there's a long season to go. A lot can happen between now and then. So we'll see what happens. A lot of different types of races coming up over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. We've got Bristol coming up this weekend, like Mason said, on Easter Sunday. What time is that going to be? I think it's 7 o'clock. Let's see.
7 p.m. Eastern time.
On Fox. So make sure you guys have that set on your DVRs. And the truck race will be there Saturday night as well. And we will also have heat races, which I love. I love heat races. So that's going to be exciting. So, guys, thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys had a good time watching, listening, wherever you are, if you either on YouTube watching or Spotify listening. My name is Jacob Barker. You can find me on social media on Twitter at JWBarker24 and on Instagram at JWBarker24. You can also find me posting articles at Backsports page with our motorsports section. Guys, where can we find you on social media with Backsports page?
Well, for Mason, you can find me at Mason Hollywood 6 on Twitter and Mason.wood01 on Instagram. I do have all of the links to my Backsports page articles on my Twitter, so be sure to check it out there.
My Twitter page is just a sports fan, and you'll see the spelling in the graphic over there. And
yeah.
As of April 3rd, they were recording this, I actually got a new article out and about the greatest top 5 American drivers. And yeah, y'all need to check it out. That's a pretty dope article.
Check it out or else. Well, guys, thank you both for joining the podcast today. Hope you guys had fun recording. We will talk to you guys on the next episode of The Outside Line. Once again, this has been Jacob Barker with Backsports page. Joining me today are Mason Wood and Christopher Shoemaker. Hope you guys are going to have an awesome day. Whatever you're doing today, please be safe and have an awesome day today, guys.
Have fun.
Happy Easter!
Oh, yeah. Happy Easter, by the way. That's this Sunday, isn't it?
Indeed.
All right. Awesome. See you guys next time.